Hey y'all, I'm Hope here at Crafty Hope and welcome. Today I am going to play with some Grafix Shrink Film to create little flowers. These are cupped flowers, kind of like a bead cap-ish, kind of a bowl shape. And yeah, we're gonna play with this. We're gonna do a couple different methods to work with several of the different shrink plastics that you can find at grafix.com. And I'm gonna show you different ways to make them and to use them. So let's get started. We're gonna play. So the first thing I want to work with, well, first I want to show you what I have is the clear shrink film, the matte shrink film, and then I have the white and the black. I'll probably not be using the black, but know that you can work with these with metallic markers. Work great with these. I actually have one of the flowers here that I did with a blue metallic marker. It's not quite the effect I want to do with this. So I want to start with the clear shrink film. And I've already cut it in half. And I am going to use, you can use a variety of materials on the shrink film, but what I am going to work with, let me get it open. I'm going to start by working with some of the clear shrink film. You can see that it is perfectly clear. Know that when you shrink any of these, they shrink by about 20%. So what I like about the clear is that you can see through it for one thing. So you can trace anything you want. So this is one of the many things that you can do with it. So you can print out different floral designs or whatever designs like I have here, or you can draw something. I just took a felt tip marker and drew some flower designs. So that's exactly what I am going to do. Like I said, I'm going to use permanent markers. These I got fairly cheaply. If you've got another set that you like, it doesn't matter. So I've got some that I made some of these with, and I'm just going to get to it. And I will probably speed this up and talk over it as I create. Obviously, I could have drawn these straight onto the shrink plastic because these are flowers I drew, but I wanted to make sure I had them fairly consistent for the project I'm going to use these flowers in. So, and I knew I wanted like a large, a medium, and a small one, and I wanted to make sure that I had those shapes about right. So being able to trace them with the shrink plastic I had drawn is great. If there's something you would like to have in a shrink plastic or a smaller plastic size, this is great because you can draw that and then trace it through there. So you can do a search online for, whatever it is. If you want, I don't know, a monster or a fancy heart or wings or, whatever it is that you want to draw to shrink down. This clear works great for, like I said, tracing through it or using your own design. But I liked the idea of having the small, medium, and large ones to do this. So I picked out 3 shades of pink for my flowers here in these permanent markers. These have a dual-sided tip, so one side is a brush side and the other side is a small bullet tip. And I'm using the brush side for the most part because, I have it. It's kind of fun to use. And then I'm doing the centers with a yellow, and you can see I'm kind of brushing those off on the paper to get the pink off of my yellow marker. This lightest pink is going to be really hard to see. So I'm just about done with these, and I'm not going to show you me cutting all of them out when we get to that in just a second. I'll give you an idea of it. So, and that'll be the case with the other 2 shrink films I use. You'll get to see most of my process, but maybe not all of it. So from there, I am cutting down my flowers. I start with all of these by separating them. If I've got multiples on a sheet, I'm going to separate them. It's just easier to work with that way. And like I said, it's really, really hard to see that lightest pink. So I'm going to really just show you the larger ones first. Now for these,
all of the ones that I cut out, I am not cutting, even when I fussy cut anything, I never cut directly on the line. I always leave a little bit of a border, and that's what I'm doing. So if you want to cut directly on the lines, go for that. Do that. Your designs will go all the way out to the edges. You could always come back into after you cut it and pull that out to have it cover the edges. That's just not what I'm doing. I'm being very careful as I cut these, because this shrink plastic in this form can tear. If you snip it the wrong way and pull a little too hard, it will tear a little bit. So definitely be careful when you're doing this. And I like with this clear that and you'll kind of see it in the second one as I cut it. I'm going to cut it here, going in all one direction, and then because it's clear, I can flip it over and cut all in the same, because I'm right-handed and it's easier for me to cut that way. So here with the clear, you see I am flipping it over and cutting the other direction to get the rest of the excess off. So, and that's pretty much what I'm going to do with all of them, but definitely try out the shrink plastic or the shrink film and see what works best for you. So when I get done with this, I'm going to show you all of them cut out, and then we're going to get to the next shrink film that we're going to work with, and the next technique we're going to use to alter it. So here's a quick look now at all 6 of my flowers cut out. I'm going to put those aside, clean up my desk, and I'm going to come back in with the matte shrink film. Now, I love the matte because it's not as slick as the other shrink films. It's not like frosted so much, it's just not as slick. So what we're going to do here, instead of tracing out our flowers, is I'm stamping. I am using a permanent ink. This is Staz-on. There are other permanent stamp inks that you could get out there. And I'm going to stamp 3 designs onto this mat, and it will slip, so definitely still be careful. I probably could have even used a stamping platform to get it even more exact. So if you've got that kind of tool, do that. Yeah, and if you don't have a stamps, you can take a black permanent marker and just draw out those designs just as well. But I want to show you that you can take stamps and do this if you don't want to draw. And the mat is clear enough that I think you could trace through it with a black permanent marker, but it's just not as transparent as the frosted, or it's not as transparent as the clear. So the mat is also really great because it's got that frosted matte surface. You can color on it with a colored pencil. So I'm going to take quite a bit of time. I'm going to speed this up, y'all, but I am using some Prismacolor, I think it's the Scholar brand ones, to color on to my matte shrink film. And I'm going to use several different colors, kind of blend it and go for it. I'm going to let you take a look at that. What I do want to tell you is that when you shrink the mat, it becomes less translucent. So if you shrink it, the color doesn't show through the same way it does with the clear. So when I get done coloring one side here, I'm going to flip it over and color the other side. So this is just what I found. So here I can see my stamping because it is that nice dark black, but when I shrink it up, it becomes more opaque. So I want to prevent that because I am making those little bowls. So there will be an inside of the bowl and an outside the bowl, and I want the color to show through. So like I said, I'm using several different colors to do this, and I encourage you to play. I was really having a good time with it. I want you to notice that most of these flowers have individual petals on them. I've got that one that's more circular, and I did that on purpose so I can show you what happens when you shrink one that's more round and less lined for a better term. So just like the other ones, I'm going to cut these out individually, and yeah, try to get as many of the curves so that the petals, they're individual petals. So it shrinks a little bit differently as far as the way we're going to work with these flowers than it does when you've got those individual petals as opposed to just a round shape. So yeah, it's just one of those things. And again, I'm taking my time kind of going in to each of these. And I could, with this mat, because I can see through, I could do the same technique I did with the other one, but I don't know that I did on that one. So the last shrink film we're going to work with in this video is the white. Now it is completely opaque, and so I'm working with it almost completely different than I did the other two. So I'm going to use some paint pens. I've got a combination of Posca paint pens, and then the other ones are some Target brand. I think they're like Mondo Llama or something. And y'all, I messed up. I don't know if you can see, I had a huge sploosh with that purple paint pen. I was a little overzealous in using it. So we're gonna move on to some of the other paint pens, because that was an error on my part, and I could have definitely pulled that out and done something else with it, but it's fine. I've got more paint pens and more shrink plastic. So for this one, I am drawing out mine. I'm not tracing or stamping. Again, you can stamp on this just the same as you could the other two. Keep in mind, like I said, it can be a little more slippery than the mat is. So, but yeah, you could definitely, this is the freehand portion of this, draw out whatever design you want. Like this, in this case, I am doing flowers, just playing with some doodles. Now, I did have to give the paint pens a little bit of time to dry and come back to add any accents that I wanted in them. I think that orange one, no, I am going to go in with it. I think maybe the back side I didn't come in with additional accents. So I'm mixing and matching these paint pens, just letting myself kind of play, but keeping in mind that this needs to dry, and even after I get it cut out, I think it was still a little damp and I kind of had to blot it off. It's a little bit harder for me to do the back side on these because I can't see them. So yeah, I'm having to blot up some of that. So since I cannot see the back sides of these, and like I said, I want both the inside and the outside of these cupped flowers to have colors on them, what I'm going to do is cut them out before I've done the back side. And again, I'm cutting them individually, and I'm going to come in and cut out the petals just the way I did with the other ones, just going around getting all of the individual petals. And for some reason, y'all, these flowers in particular do more of the cupped pattern than, and I don't know if it's because of the way I drew them or what. And sorry, Artemis had to join me in this endeavor for some reason. So yeah, there's a cat in my lap while I'm working on this. But these that I hand you, I think because I was able to separate the petals a little bit more, they do more of that cupped pattern that I like. So now that I have it cut out with the shape that I want, I can come back in with my paint pens again and do, I could do a different color if I wanted, but because of what I knew I was going to do with these, I kind of just kept them in that same color. I tried to remember exactly what markers I used for them. So I'm going to do that for all of these, cut them down, flip them over, and then repaint them. So once I have all of my flowers cut out, I'm going to use about the same method with all of them. You can see I've got a heat tool. I have this is a big piece of tile that I'm working on to protect my surface. I have a long knitting needle. You could use a bamboo skewer or something else. And I have my Crop-a-dile, and it is set to the 1/8 inch. I think that's right. The smallest of the two holes that you can punch from the Crop-a-dile. I think it's a 1/8 inch. And I'm going to just punch holes in the center of all of my flowers. So I'm starting again with the clear shrink film and my permanent marker traced ones. And yeah, y'all are going to get to see me do all of this because I'm going to almost immediately go into shrinking these. So this is where the shrinking portion of this is where it gets a little more hands on, I suppose, so we can get that that cupped shape. I noticed it when I was playing around with the shrink film that when you go to shrink this, the petals all kind of fold up at you. So when you put your shrink film down, make sure that whatever you want the inside of your flower to be, that's what is facing up. So I have got my heat tool, I've got my what is that? My knitting needle in the center hole of that, and I shrunk it until it is about where I know it's, completely shrunk. And then I used my hand. So here you see, I've got my knitting needle in there. I am shrinking that, trying to make sure I heat all the way around. It's going to pull up toward me. And as it separates, I quickly go in with my hands, y'all. It is hot. It is hot, so work. But it cools very quickly. And I'm doing the same thing with all of the ones. These are the colored pencil ones on the matte shrink film. And you can see, again, that pulled up, and I'm just using my hands very quickly to make that bowl-like shape. It's hot, but it's not like too hot. So play around, see what you like. I tried several different things to make that shape, and this is how I found it worked best. So, and again, I've got what I want the inside to be. So the parts I colored for the inside are what is facing up at me, and what's going to be on the outside is on the bottom as I heat it. So I'm going to show you that round one here just real quick, and so that you can see what happens when it doesn't have the those petals to kind of separate all of it. So this is the more round one, and what it's going to do, because it doesn't have different places, it tries to make like a taco shape, y'all. It just kind of bows up. So this one, you have to, if you don't have all of the petals on it, just go ahead and know that it's not going to have as much of a bowl shape as some of these other ones. And so here's the one we did on the white shrink film with the paint pens. And you can see that one forms a really great bowl shape, or concave, convex, whichever way it goes, a bead cap shape. So, and yeah. So, and I did all of my flowers in this manner. So we're going to get to the projects I'm doing with each of them. And the first project is a pair of earrings we're going to make with the clear shrink film flowers. So I've taken a head pin and put a little bead on it. And we're going to make a wrapped loop. I'm using a round nose pair of pliers, bending that head pin just over the bead, making a loop, and then wrapping the end of that pin around the bottom of the pin. I have over on my YouTube channel, Crafty Hope, I have videos on how to make wrap loops. I encourage you to go watch that. We're going to make several of them here, so that should give you a general idea. But this is more about the way we can use the shrink film. So this is an eye pin. I'm going to twist open the eye of it, the little loop that's on it, and hook it onto the loop we made with the bead on it, and then use my chain nose pliers to then close that open loop. And then I'm going to slip on my smallest flower that we made with the shrink film, and then I've got a tiny clear seed bead that I'm going to put on top just to help stabilize that shrink film flower. And I'm going to make another wrap loop. So I'm bending that wire, making my loop, and then wrapping below that loop to secure everything. And then I will trim off the excess wire and probably tuck it real quick. So like I said, we're going to make several of these so you get a good idea. But I'm going to mention a video I have for the next project in this video, and hopefully in the description of that I'll have a link to how to make the wrap loops. So here is I'm opening that other eye pin, slipping on our little dangle, closing it, and then slipping on the medium size shrink film flower, and then a little clear seed bead, and I'm making another wrap loop. So bending the pin, wrapping my wire, and then making my loop, and then wrapping my wire. Oh, so many words, y'all. And then I'll trim this and tuck real quick, maybe. Yep. I don't like those little ends to not be tucked real well. So I've opened another eye pin, slipped on the dangle, closed that eye pin, slipping on our flower, another tiny seed bead, and then making a wrap loop. So we're going to bend and then make our loop and then wrap the pin at the bottom and then trim it. So as easy as that. And then the last thing we're going to do is add our ear wire. I've got a simple fish hook ear wire. It has a loop at the bottom of it. So I'll use those chain nose pliers to twist open the loop. You always, with any kind of loop, you're going to twist them open. Don't pull them. So twist open my loop, slip on that other loop, twist it closed, and that is it. I've got the other earring already made, but y'all, I love these. I absolutely love this project and cannot wait to make some more of these. For my second project, I'm using the matte shrink film flowers we made, and I have a prepared art journal page here, which is the project I'm going to share with you over, if you'll head over to my Crafty Hope channel here on YouTube. I'll show you how I made the background for this. So what I am using is I'm going to put this in my journal, and I've got two separate sets of needles. One is a very sturdy one and one is a beading needle that will go through my bead several times. I'm also using some, I believe that is just some crochet thread, and I'm put it on my beading needle and tying a knot, and I've got some e-beads, which are larger seed beads. So what I've got here is a regular needle, and I'm punching a hole through my background paper and then coming up through with my beading needle and thread through my flower, and then I'm going to put one of those beads on to the thread and go back through our flower, not through the bead again, because then it'll just pop off. So kind of like go around the bead and then back through your flower and the hole in the back and pull it through your paper, and you've got a little flower sewn onto your journal page. And we're going to do this 2 more times. So I'm going to punch my hole right where I want my flower, pull my beading needle up through my paper of my journal, and then through my shrink film flower, and then put my little e-bead on there, kind of go around the e-bead and back through my flower and back through my paper, and then pull that through. And we're going to do it 1 more time. So I've got my last matte shrink film flower, punch my hole with my regular needle, take my beading needle up through the paper, up through my flower, up through an e-bead, around the e-bead, and then back through the flower and the journal page. And then we're going to flip it on the back and tie off the thread so that there's no loose. I'm making sure everything's tight before I do that because I don't want them to like flop off the page. So I'm just going to do a knot kind of in the background and tie that off, and then I will secure all of that with some masking tape just to kind of tape down on the page. I think that's what I'm going to do anyway. Yep. And then I'm finish off the rest of this journal page here so you can see it. I'm going to add a sentiment that I've got set off to the side. I think it says cultivate kindness or something like that. Yeah, that's exactly what it says. And then I'm going to take I've got to use a little bit of extra glue stick to make sure it sticks down because I've got lots of texture on that art journal page. And I'm going to use a pen to just go around kind of messily that so it stands out a little bit. And that's it for project number 2 with the matte shrink film flowers. The last flowers we've got to work with are the white shrink film flowers. Use some wire, probably about 22 gauge, and some more e-beads. So I've cut a short length, about 6 inches of wire. I am threading one of my flowers, about halfway on it, and then one of the beads. I'm going to take the shorter end of that wire and again go around that bead just like we did in the art journal page and go back through the flower. Now I'm going to hold the bead in one hand with the wire and wrap the other end and wrap that other part of the wire around underneath it. This is going to keep the flower from sliding down. That's kind of like a wrapped loop like we did with our earrings. So I'm going to trim and then kind of tuck the end of that wire there, and I'm going to do the same thing with this again so you can kind of see it. Take a short length of wire, thread on thread on your flower, thread on your bead, and then take that end with the bead on it, go around your bead and back through your flower. You can take your chain nose pliers to kind of pull that wire if it's easier for you. And with one hand, hold your bead there and twist that wire around the stem that's coming out the other bottom. So you're just going to kind of make a swirl around it to secure your flower and secure that wire. And then once it's wrapped sufficiently, you'll trim off the excess wire and tuck it real quick. Now I'm going to show you one alternative method if you can't get your finger down into your flower to hold that bead. I've got tiny fingers, I know this. So here's another option. I'm going to take just a little bit more wire and I'm going to fold it in half so that there is a bend. And I'm going to put on 3 of those beads, 1, 2, and 3, and make sure they go down to where that bend is. And then fold it kind of in half. And just below that, we're going to make a twist, like 1, 2, maybe 3 times, and then pull your wire back together and put it through your flower. Now here you've got more beads sticking up, so it's a little bit easier to hold. And then just take one of those ends of the wire and wrap it the same way we did with the other 2. And like I said, when it's wrapped sufficiently, when everything seems kind of secure, you can trim off that excess and tuck it. Now, I did use that much wire because it's a lot easier to manage a little extra wire than to not have enough wire. Once those are all ready to go, you're going to kind of measure them with some kind of little vial or glass or tiny vase or something and slip it in there. I've got a bunch of other ones I already made. I'm going to slip those in there and you've got a pretty little bouquet, which is perfect for the spring, or if you got somebody with a birthday or Mother's Day is coming up in a couple months. But that's it. That is shrink film 3 ways. You can trace it, you can stamp it and color it, or you can draw on it, and then there is a world of possibilities of what you can then use them in. Make a little bouquet, make some earrings, work them into your journal. It is a lot of fun to work with this shrink plastic. Let me know what your favorite way to use this shrink film is, and if you have any questions. Thanks so much for watching, and here's some pictures of all of these projects. Make sure you go check out graphicarts.com for all of these products. Bye.